Stated by Bridie Smith, for a long time, multi-age classrooms were looked at as a second-rate option and were a negative decision made by schools. With the way of teaching, learning, and classroom management constantly changing, this negative outlook has changed for the better. The 3 lesson plans created for our Prep to 3 classroom are the Introduction, Investigation, and Assessment Starter lessons, therefore are not sequenced one after another, but have a significant place in the unit. Today, I will discuss 3 main aspects that were considered when planning lessons for a multi-age classroom and prove that multi-age classrooms will benefit your students. Every student is an individual, and due to this, the classroom contains students with many different learning styles and needs that are a necessity to be catered for. To build class units and lessons with student diversity is to differentiate, which is the process by which differences between pupils are accommodated so that all students have the best possible chance of learning. In this 25 student Prep to 3 class at Sandy Plains State School, all students are considered when planning occurs, but there are specific adjustments and acknowledgements of learning needs and behaviours which are made for our student in Prep, that is working at a Year 2 level, our Year 1 student working at a pre-Prep level due to an intellectual impairment, and our cousins in Year 2 who are competitive and argue constantly, which is a reflection on their parents' relationship. Along with these students, the Indigenous students make up 35% of the entire school. Therefore, 9 Indigenous students are in our class. In the lessons provided for this history unit, many of the differentiation strategies were used because they benefit all students and they provide an easy class structure for me as a classroom teacher to facilitate learning. Grouping was required in all lessons, either small groups or in pairs. The groups are strategically selected before class as it separates the students into the correct groups, which agrees with Johnson's statements that by grouping students appropriately for a specific learning situation will help the individual's confidence and therefore extend their learning. Johnson also states that teaching in a multi-age setting requires more preparation time and long-range planning. The activities I created in these lesson plans require preparations to ensure that the students will be participating in an activity that is catering for differentiation. One example of how this was done is in Lesson 1 in the conclusion activity. According to SIPE, a conclusion activity is always very important as it summarises the main idea of the lesson and allows the students to pose questions. The conclusion activity for Lesson 1 provides the same content for all students but is delivered differently to cater for all learning levels, low to high abilities. With the middle and high learners having to copy the letter off the board, the low level ability learners are given a printout of the letter and only have to write who the letter is to and from. But by dividing this activity, these 2 groups will mean that the time limit of the conclusion activity will be reached and that I can ensure that each student will complete the conclusion activity to then take the letters home and bring back their answers to the next history lesson. Using differentiation to create lessons and unit plans will benefit both the teacher and student and is definitely agreeing with Delezio's statement that teachers in multi-age classrooms are teaching to abilities, not ages. Along with differentiation, using effective teaching strategies determines the impact the lesson has on the students and whether or not what is being taught is being learnt. During the planning stages of these history lesson plans, the teaching strategies that were going to be used were carefully considered to benefit all students in the class. Before any planning occurred, making the lessons student-centered was key, as this enables the needs of each and every student to be met in all aspects of their schooling. As mentioned previously, group work is an important strategy, but the planning of the students in the group and whether or not the group had a teacher allocated to it allowed for the teaching strategy of teacher guidance to come into play. When split into groups, I've selected either myself, the classroom teacher, a teacher aide, or a parent helper to be with the low or middle achieving groups. Teresa Cooper explains why teacher guidance is a good strategy. She states that the teacher has more time to meet the needs of the most challenging students who may require greater teacher guidance while giving the high achieving students time to work independently. With the teacher guidance strategy benefiting the low and middle level groups, for the high achieving students in their own group, the teacher strategy that will allow them to further their understanding and confidence in the subject is peer teaching. When peer teaching occurs in a multi-age classroom, similar to Sarah Briggs' comments, when peer teaching, each person is responsible, and due to the difference in grade levels, each student can contribute relevant, prior, and unique knowledge. I've also included hands-on activities amongst the lessons to create an engaging lesson that stimulates the students to learn as much as they can. Hands-on activities benefits most learning needs within the class as it allows students to express their learning through a non-written way. An effective quote I looked at when considering the benefits of hands-on activity is from Corinthians College. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. This very much condenses how my students learn, and that by doing and participating in hands-on activities, they are more likely to understand and obtain the information learnt. A very clear teaching strategy that is used in each lesson is the clear child knowledge lesson objectives. Walt, we are learning to. Wilf, what I'm looking for. And Tib, this is because. Before the enhancing phase of the lesson, these three objectives are addressed by the teacher guiding the class or the class creating them without teacher input. Having these lesson objectives creates the class where all is involved. Teachers, students, and helpers know what is to be learnt by the end of the lesson and what is expected of them within this lesson. This also includes behaviour. This agrees with the statement posted by the Instructional Assessment Resource site that if a classroom has a clear objectives, the entire class knows where it is heading and what is expected of them. Resources that are used within a lesson either make the lesson a success or a flop. The most valued resource that is used in our Prep to 3 class are our teacher aides and parent helpers. As we are a classroom with prep students, one of the 6 full-time teacher aides at Sandy Plains State School is a full-time teacher aide within our classroom. This teacher aide has a fantastic rapport with all of the students and is a great asset to our classroom. The second teacher aide that is available is a funded teacher aide for the student that needs extra support, therefore our student with intellectual impairment working at a pre-prep level. She works closely with this student to ensure that all the aims are being broken down and understood clearly. Finally, our Sandy Plains State School has a fairly good relationship with the community and is a school that is used as a community hub. Parents of some students are willing to help within the classroom whenever they are needed and are free. These parents helpers are fantastic in a multi-age classroom as they know and understand the students within the class as their children are around the same age, and they also provide an extra hand when needed in group activities. Each of these classroom helpers are valued resources and support both the teacher and the students to achieve the learning outcomes. Kemi Harbison states that technology can have a profound effect upon the quality of both teaching and student learning. The use of technology is scattered throughout our history lessons because in the 21st century, technology is a form of resource that is relevant and relatable to most students in primary schools. Teaching through technology allows for the teacher to monitor learning and bring together students with different learning styles and backgrounds. Using technology is also a positive resource as it allows the students to feel a sense of ownership to their learning. A resource found in the final lesson given is the use of an assignment example. Providing an example is not just the assignment, but of any work needed to be completed is a resource as it establishes clear goals and aims for all in the classroom. When providing with these examples before beginning work, students and teacher are able to work through it and discuss the process and provide time for the teacher to correctly scaffold what is expected. Teaching prep to 3, it is important to note that this age gap is quite diverse in the stages they are and should be up to with their writing and speaking. Therefore, it is important to consider when planning not to ask them to write down a full page of notes as this is impossible within a set time frame. Due to this, important educational resources have to be planned and prepared for before class. Emma McDonald states this point clearly when she says preparation is absolutely the key to being a successful teacher. If a teacher is organised and has all resources needed to enhance students' learning within that lesson, it will allow a higher chance of the lesson to be a success. To end, considering differentiation, teaching strategy, and resources carefully when planning in a multi-age classroom allows for the lessons to run smoothly and for myself to know that each student in the class is benefiting and obtaining the correct information for their level of ability. This revisits the perfect quote from a multi-age classroom teacher that we are teaching to abilities and not ages.